Goodness. No, I am not in tomorrow. We're just doing a little show in Boston. It's with Apollo. Is that a show? Yeah. Yeah, well, the spaceship, yeah. You were playing music? Sorry, you were playing music? Oh, the people that run this do, that run the cameras. Oh. Do you think that bottom doors will lock?
Yeah.
What?
I did wrong today. Fine. So just decided to lie.
You too.
Yes. Thank you again for showing up. I know Lydia and I were getting I like pushed off other stuff to do space. We both creative mindsets. We call for 2 hours. I'm like, oh, this. So we're doing well again. Good process. So we're trying to get it all out. Translation. So you said the city can do the translation to Spanish and Portuguese. Is there something different for that? Oh, okay. I'll just send our cross check to you.
So that's going to be LTC. Because usually they join the little city hall. I know, so I was trying to walk slow, because as soon as I get here.
So that's not the house.
No,
Oh, okay,
that's
I was wondering. How do do that? Okay.
That's LTC.
All right.
That's city hall, but that's not. What is it now?
I'm in
They would need a
in
different thing
April.
other than
So it's like
LTC.
it's the freshman year. No, my wife Emma just got a the fellow in residence position.
Oh, nice.
So we're living like in an apartment.
On the first floor?
Second floor.
So I lived in the streets. I feel like there was a full apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like the community director or whatever's there.
Yeah.
We're like right.
Oh.
We just moved out in like, but it's nice to be able to actually walk to stuff.
Yeah, I know. I love being able to walk.
My office is right above that place, or where it used to be.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
There's office space in there?
Oh, it's,
That was old Beer Works, right?
That's where Weston and Sampson has their Lowell office, and we share it with the Office of Sustainability at UMass.
Oh.
Yeah. Actually, Captain and Cynthia there for Tuesday. I get to listen to it.
She's gonna be sweating. Yeah, the other day I got up early and I just went for a walk and I walked out, I'm like, woo.
Yeah.
It was like 6:30, so like it's shitty.
It was funny, Cynthia and I were, Michaela and I went to work on a Tuesday night and we were able to crack open the keg of shipyard pumpkin. They were like, we're out of this, we're opening shipyard pumpkin. I'm like,
No.
then we had the first one. It was
Nice.
Tuesday. And I was like, it feels like fall. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite time of year. Hi. Hi, Daddy.
Hi. Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Victoria.
You too.
how you doing?
Doing good.
Good to see you. All right. So we have who on the call? Anybody?
I'm on the call right now, it's just LTC.
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have quorum. Look at us. Look at us with our quorum already. Okay, I know we have a few others joining, but might be late. Yeah, yeah. So I guess we can, you want to get started? Might as well, only got an hour and a half, right? Alrighty, let's go ahead. So we have the minutes for approval from the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review, or we can take a few minutes now? Yeah, go for it. We can abstain. Unless we.
I watched it.
Oh, okay. That's good. And are we recorded when it's in this meeting for LPC? Oh, cool.
So if you don't consent to be recorded, you should step up.
Right.
You don't have a court, so.
Yeah, that's kind of part of the deal, isn't it? Just to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, 9 seconds. All in favor? All right, wonderful. So we'll go on to our next item. So this was something that we tabled for and thought really long and hard about, I think, as a council. So it was tabled, I think when we first discussed it was the meeting where Dave Fuller came to talk about enforcement. And that was a while back. So we've been at this for a while. Does anybody have specialized stretch code? Yeah, yeah. So I think the objective is to put this to a vote at this meeting, since we have been talking about it for quite some time. Please, please.
I had to write it down right. And the only thing I'd ask is just because we're in this room, just try and speak a little bit loudly so it can pick up on beat.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry. Well, I hope it's not too long. I just didn't want to forget anything.
Please, go for it. Good
Okay.
organization.
Okay, so I personally think this is a no-brainer for a yes vote. Again, I want to remind all the members of the council that our function and purpose is established in the articles for the Sustainability Council is to advocate for green design, construction, and development practices in the city of Lowell that will increase the sustainability and reduce the environmental impacts of building and other development activity. Guidelines to achieve this include working with the Sustainability Division to support programs that target carbon emissions, waste reduction, recycling, building materials and techniques, energy efficiency, air quality, site and building design, etc. As someone stated in the July meeting, there is a climate crisis and a housing crisis, but our function is to help reduce the environmental impacts of the climate crisis. We're not here to solve the housing crisis. We're not here to solve rent control. That is not the duty of the Sustainability Council, no matter how much we care about those things on a personal level. Also, after listening to the July meeting, I didn't quite understand all the talk of reaching out to the renters and landlords. When this is for new construction only, this has nothing to do with retrofitting existing buildings. This specialized structure. There is no change for existing homes, additions to homes, or historic buildings. This is for new construction only, and the builders and developers are not required to go all electric. They can still use gas. They just have to facilitate electrification in a new building, which is a minimal cost in the beginning, compared to having to retrofit later on down the line. Those, sorry. And those minimal costs should be covered by incentives from Mass Save and DOER. Some studies show that building all electric costs less than building for gas and electric. Also, gas is estimated to cost twice as much over the next decade, as gas companies will soon be charging builders to hook up gas, which they hadn't been doing in the past, which costs at least $7,000. The DPU, or Department of Public Utilities, has already approved discounts for heat pump customers for the upcoming season. And there's already a push by the DOER and others to increase that amount. If it's a passive house, which is a green building energy standard that ensures buildings consume minimal amounts of energy, they get preference for affordable housing. Not only that, setting up the building for all electric will boost the resale value of the building for the developer. So again, these new requirements that special ed switch code fall on the developers, that they do benefit the renters and buyers. If the building is all electric or passive house, it's better air quality with less pollution, less moisture, less noise, better overall comfort for the renter. A more efficient system will put less pressure on the grid, leading to less chances of power outages, as well as significant savings on energy bills, 50 to 60%, according to Dylan Patel's DOER presentation. Just a reminder, the city of Lowell adopted the Lowell Forward Plan in May 24. That plan calls to promote a clean energy economy by increasing the number of households utilizing decarbonized energy sources, increasing the total installed solar infrastructure by 50%, reducing carbon emissions from buildings citywide 50% by 2030 and 75% by 2040, reducing carbon emissions citywide to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Also, opting into the specialized stretch code helps us check off 5 of the 6 requirements to reach climate leader status. Once we become a climate leader, additional state grant funding from DOER will become available. Catherine knows. And finally, the city council's all buzz about our front runner city status given to us by the Urban Economy Forum. The UEF's mission is to promote sustainable economies in cities and support the planning of urban growth in a more sustainable and climate neutral way. We are the only city in the US to acquire this status. 55 other communities just in Massachusetts alone have adopted this specialized stretch code. But we are the one and only front-runner city in the United States. This designation and partnership with the UEF and the World Urban Pavilion will unlock significant monetary resources for our city. I think it might look pretty bad if we didn't have the top tier building codes that work towards our sustainability and carbon neutral goals. There's a lot of development planned for Lowell's future, not only with the front runner city status, but with the Link project as well. As a council, we need to be forward thinking about clean energy for the city. Opting into the specialized stretch code is essential to lowering emissions and keeping up with our climate goals. A reminder that a yes vote today does not actually opt the city into the specialized stretch code, right? A yes vote means that we, as a sustainability council, recommend that Catherine Moses, the state sustainability division, research this further.
It's up to you.
Oh.
I mean, it's a motion, I think, yeah, to recommend.
Yeah.
that
Yes, so
we
you guys
adopt it.
can recommend if you want us to go forward with this. But as with all policies that you recommend, it still needs to be vetted up the city chain, starting with the sustainability division. And I think that I've, expressed my concerns about the specialized stretch codes.
As Mary had said, I think last month, the sustainability division is charged with decarbonization and energy efficiency. So I vote yes that we ask Catherine to recommend to the city councilors that they should opt in a specialized stretch code. If that's sort of what we're doing.
Yeah, maybe could I ask, sorry, that order, could I ask that we clarify like what exactly the motion is, just so I.
That's what I thought we had to do. Like,
Yeah,
is
the motion would
recommend.
be to, for the Sustainability Council to recommend that the city adopt a special action. Well, we need to make a motion.
Oh, do I make
We
a
can-
motion?
or we can discuss.
Yeah, you can discuss more, but before the final vote, you need to make a motion, have a second.
In that time being, I tried to predict that I have anything back in that time. But I did consult some of our engineers at Weston and Sampson that have been working with climate communities that have adopted the specialized stretch code. And I don't have it ready because the woman I have to contact with is, so she's not in the office this week. But what I have heard from her in a call is that it is correct that around a 3% overall increase in construction costs, but they have been seeing increased paybacks over the span of its life and projections of over the span of its life. So coming from an engineering standpoint, a lot of engineers, it is more of a, it's an adjustment, it's a change to stretch codes, but we're seeing that in some of the communities that it's been going, it has not been deterring for a lot of development. We're seeing Lowell is a different city, partly for many reasons, and some of the communities that she listed were a lot different, smaller communities, more single family developments. But she also was an advocate and saw that a lot of communities are going forward with this. And I work with a lot of congregated communities and their grant opportunities are immense when it comes to funding. So just wanted to add that. I wasn't able to hear back from Dylan, but I was able to consult a few people internally.
Next, thank you.
So, yes, as you all know, I've been really wrestling with a lot of different priorities that I have, and that a lot of us have for the city. As you all said, like we do have a housing crisis and a climate crisis, and so I'm like always wondering, how do we solve both of them, and not cause harm to the other? And the more I've thought about it, when I'm thinking about housing, we do have a housing shortage, and it's very expensive to build in Massachusetts and in Lowell, like compared to a lot of other states. And I use a question to try and help me decide, what's, I guess I pose myself a question like, if there is an obstacle to construction, is it a necessary obstacle, or is it an unnecessary obstacle? Like, does that obstacle provide some kind of benefit, or does it not? And so, I think Lowell has a lot of unnecessary obstacles, or the state of Massachusetts has some unnecessary obstacles, like unnecessarily restrictive zoning that might prevent the construction of more multifamily housing. I know some people are the abundant housing Massachusetts is looking at the possibility of researching the extent to which multifamily buildings could have like single staircases instead of two, and that can like possibly, if it, I guess that could possibly allow more construction in the state if it doesn't negatively impact like fire safety. So like there's all these, obstacles where I can ask, does this, is this a necessary obstacle or not? We have the tariffs on steel, and how that increases the cost of construction. I see that as an unnecessary addition of cost. And so I guess I'm coming around to, obviously I'm a climate, I'm a person who cares about the climate a lot. And I guess I'm thinking about how can we I mean, there are other things we can do to advocate for. I guess we can do both, is what I'm saying. So like, I think in some ways, creating this restriction could make it more expensive. You know, we don't have a ton of data, as we were saying, like on how much this impacts construction decisions, development beginnings. But we could also attack all those unnecessary things to try and get those out of the way. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And so, you know, where I'm at right now is that that seems like this is something that we can move forward on to try to prevent the crime
Can
from getting worse.
Hello, can I ask, or can I,
Yes, sorry.
So, we're at 6:47 and we've got a full agenda and we have discussed this quite a bit. So, AC, definitely, and, you know, share your thoughts, but try to keep them to 1 or 2 minutes if you can.
okay, no, I'll be really fast, but when you talk like this is something that someone who works in public infrastructure, this is the one thing we have difficulty with because you're talking good ideas. What you don't understand is that things have capacity. Populations have a capacity limit of how much you can't just do things because it sounds good. You know, you have to have the sewage, you have to have the EPA regulations and air quality. I mean, there's all these things that predetermine how much housing you can have. You can say it and it sounds good, but there's reasons for zoning. So just keep that in the back of your head. That's it.
Yes. All right, thank you. Yeah. My quick thoughts are especially in light, I mean, Vic said everything I would, you know, probably say, and more. He put it really well. With the recent, the front runner city status and the access to low interest capital, I think part of the goal is to develop more housing. Some of the goals, the UN Sustainable Development Goals are, you know, no poverty, clean energy, sustainable cities, responsible consumption. And that to me all aligns with specialized stretch code, especially with Billy talking about the payback on the other end of reducing energy burdens for the people that end up living in these units. So, and our, you know, goal as a sustainability council is to encourage green building and design. So,
Somebody wanna make a motion?
yeah, if that's it, somebody want to make a motion? Yeah. I think the wording was for the Sustainability Council to recommend that the city
Okay.
Sustainability Division recommendation that the
I make a motion that the Sustainability Division of the City of Lowell is a component of the specialized stretch goals.
all right. All in favor? Raise your
I think
hand up or just say yes.
I missed the first half discussion. I'm very late, 20 minutes late, so I'm not sure what you're voting on.
Oh,
To
I'll
motion,
abstain.
motion to support for the specialized stretch code. For the
And
city,
Motion to what?
motion for support for the city to go towards the specialized stretch code.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm also a no.
I don't know. Yeah.
okay, so that is 1, 2, 3. It's 4 yeses and 2 noes. All right, so we can, next steps is we can write a letter.
I can take your recommendation for
Yep.
this meeting and set it up the chain, you know, starting with the recommendation of the sustainability vision and its concerns around that. And then we can report back once it's been vetted through the appropriate channels in the city future.
we are officially on record as voting. All right, next item is letter of support for grants. Catherine, I know you had one specific that you were.
Yeah, so, and I think you can probably, if you wanted to, in order to save time, and give us time to discuss other things, I think you combine the letter of support and continued business for grants along with the sustainability division update, because this is the primary update that we have this month. If somebody wants to make a motion to do that, then we can say 2 agenda items and just 1 talking point.
That is efficient. Yeah, I'd move that we combine those 2 items.
All right, so I will, I'll just talk a little bit about some of the grants that we've applied for and what we're planning to do with them. So I think we had shared, I think maybe in the July meeting, June, I can't remember, they all run together, that the Sustainability Division had received a $5 million grant from the Green School Works program from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. And that grant would allow us to do decarbonization work as we retrofit an existing building circa 1950s, the Jeanne d'Arc school that the city had purchased that's going to house our students that have autism. And so as we look to renovate that building, the Green School Works will allow us to begin to renovate it with an eye towards decarbonization, putting in on all electric heating and cooling system, doing energy efficiency upgrades, necessary electrical upgrades, etc. So the current grant that we had a pre-application that we put in August for is the TESI grant, which is Transforming Energy in Schools Initiatives. That's up to $10 million from the Department of Energy Resources. And I think the idea behind this type of money is to see if you can create a building that can kind of show the test case for what decarbonization really looks like. How can you braid together and put together different funding sources to be able to do these kinds of building conversions? I think the grant itself required you to reduce your fossil fuel usage by at least 60%. And you needed to be in a community that had a high population of low-income students, and Lowell fits the bill in those things. So what we're looking to do, we have scheduled what we've completed, the site visit for a comprehensive building assessment, which will give us different types of decarbonization options to look at for the heating and cooling of that school. We expect that, along with other measures that we can take, we expect that to come back around mid-September. And then we think that in September sometime, according to the original program opportunity notice, that we will see what a full application would look like for this grant. Tentatively, according to the initial plan, it should be due by the end of October. So if the Sustainability Council would like to have a letter of support for that, we can draft that on our end to have you officially vote on that for the language and everything. And to be honest, I don't know if there's a place in the application for letters of support, but typically there are in these types of grants. But we just wanted to throw that out there to add additional, answer any questions that you might have, anything that you would want to know about potentially supporting the city in this initiative, and how this might fit into some of our broader goals around decarbonization and reducing emissions and costs.
What was the effort?
Testing, so that's Transforming Energy in Schools Initiative. I feel like I should add a shout out to Mary, because I know that she advocated for this type of funding and for really considering communities like Lowell in this.
Wonderful. So is it up to 10 million specifically for Jeanne d'Arc?
Yes, so what we don't know, I guess what we don't know about Jeanne d'Arc at this point is how much it's actually going to cost to renovate the whole campus. So there's a building that used to be the main school, and then you have a building that used to be the convent. And so we're looking to transform that entire campus, but we don't know if the $5 million that we got from Green School Works and the $4 million in capital that the city is putting in to do things like ADA compliance, and general kind of upgrades. We don't know how far that'll take us along on our decarbonization journey. So we would look to grade these different funding sources using mass save incentives, looking into the potential of applying in 2027 for the Massachusetts School Building Authority Accelerated Repair Program, so that we can integrate solar into the project as well. But we see this as kind of a decarbonization over time. We have some starter money with the Green School Works. We have starter money with our capital funding. We think that the TUSI funding can help us get to what we're really looking to get to, which is essentially a decarbonized facility that could be an example of what's possible in other kinds of buildings that are similar to the Jeanne d'Arc School. It's built in around the 1950s. I think, I forget what the statistics is, but I think it's something like 40% of the overall buildings or schools in New England were built in kind of pre-1960 era. So finding ways to decarbonize something like that will not only help us to meet our climate goals, but also help to show what's possible for other communities that have similar building stock. And they'll show how much money it actually takes to do that. But I think, what really made us put this in for these different grant opportunities is also just creating the best environment for our most vulnerable students. And so that's what the goal and the vision is, and we're hoping to be able to leverage the TUSI grant to supplement Green School Works, to supplement our capital, to supplement Mass Save, and hopefully in the future also bring MSBA.
So what's the grant options like? So if you say you get this money, is there any freedom or like discretion you can use with the money, or is it like basically like you get the money and this is what you have to do with it?
You get the money and this is what you have to do with it. What you have to do with it is really dictated by what ends up in the program opportunity notice.
So do you know what the money's going to be used for before you write the grant? So basically you're saying like,
well, we know the basic kind of categories that it's going to fall into. We know that, we think that our Green School Works will help us get the energy efficiency done at the school. We think that Green School Works will help us get at least a portion of the building retrofitted for the electrical upgrades that are needed, as well as changing over from a natural gas system to an air source heat pump system.
I was gonna ask if that was one of the things, so it's gonna be completely electric.
Yeah, that is what the goal is of bringing these grants together.
so instead of doing that, you could put like solar panels on the roof or something like that.
Well, that's a different phase of it. So in order to put solar panels on the roof, we have to have a roof that's not too old to where they won't last the lifetime of the solar panels. And so that I think is
And not that you should, I'm just saying like how much freedom do you have to decide what
I think
goes
it'll
in?
depend on what actually comes out in the program opportunity notice that is coming out in September. And so we might have more answers for that, but I think there's probably general flexibility around it. I think the goal is to get examples of what decarbonization can look like in schools in environmental justice communities. Because I know there are different kinds of concerns around those sort of things. And so we think that we have an opportunity as we're retrofitting the Jeanne d'Arc School to really show what that looks like when it's done well. And I think that this grant provides another opportunity and additional resources to get us to where we want to go. I doubt it. DOER doesn't tend to deal with landscaping as much. They tend to be more building focused, at least from our experience with them. So I think anything that would be within the schools themselves or that would feed into the energy systems of the schools would probably be the focus of it.
Yeah, I would like to add that these are great opportunities when you're looking at decarbonizing the municipal level, because the schools tend to be within the top 3 largest emitters and energy users within the municipal areas, which are wastewater and water facilities, treatment facilities, and it tends to be schools or public safety facilities. Weston and Sampson, we do a lot of school decarbonization, DOER grants. Took my money from me for the Green School Works. Did not win that grant, that's okay. But I'm glad it's going somewhere, glad it's going somewhere good, glad it's going somewhere good. But I think that this would be a great opportunity. They do have a recommendation section or a letter of recommendation. I think this would be a great opportunity. This is a great way to decarbonize large buildings at once. And the DOER has been, and Mass CEC has been shoveling a lot of money into these. Because they are, like you mentioned, 40% are built before the 1960s with very poor building envelopes. And to answer your question as well, a lot of times it's just within the building envelope of what's really going on in the school. And those types of schools, with the amount of tonnage that you would need for HVAC systems, it adds up quickly with heat pump retrofits and ensuring that in really, low temperature swings and high temperature swings, that those building systems can maintain a stable indoor temperature efficiently.
Are we able to make a motion to write that letter now, or do we need to wait or something?
Yeah, you can make the motion to write a letter of support, and if everybody agrees with that, then we can have a draft for you. So,
I think Mary has a question.
oh, yes. Mary can definitely add her here.
Hi, and thank you for the shout out, Kathleen. I just want, my reasons for supporting this kind of work may be very different from the rest of you, and I wanted to speak that out. I think it's important to recognize that during the last, that schools actually had like an energy affordability crisis some time ago. We saw schools in Canton having like 40% increases in energy costs. And in environmental justice communities, even here in Lowell, we've had complaints of air quality and many other issues. So this opportunity is not just about decarbonization, it's about just basic stuff that our students need to have an environment that that supports learning. And so I really do commend Catherine for going out, going out and trying to find this type of funding. Somebody somewhere has to be a pilot, and we should be bold to do that because we know what our problems are. And then there's something about DOER. DOER is also now very interested in schools. They had a presentation yesterday on massive transformation, and schools were part of that category.
Great, thanks, Mary. And Christina, you have your hand up?
No, I think Mary hit upon the same point I was gonna make. I think it's a good idea to go after this.
Right?
I have been also, just as a side commentary, I work a lot with American Council of Engineering Companies and with the Government Affairs Group, and I've been trying to find a way to marry local professionals, A&E firms, to do like some support work for these initiatives to make sure, especially some of these older buildings, are they're able to withstand some of the additions as far as weight and whatnot. I don't see why, as a professional, we can't provide services to towns. So I'm trying to find a way to marry it. But so I want to stay in the loop on where you go with this. That's it.
Move to write a letter of support for SE grants.
Great. All right. Well, oh wait, sorry. Do we have a second?
That's something.
All right. All in favor to write a letter of support? Great. Mary, should we record you as, I'm guessing that, yes, okay, yeah. I was just saying yes, I don't want to assume. All right, that passed unanimously. Great. Congratulations. I mean, hopefully congratulations. That sounds like a really wonderful opportunity. John Dark. Awesome. Feels good luck with that grant, and let us know if there's anything else we can do, Catherine, to help support you on that. So that, were there any other sustainability division updates? Because I know we're taking these two agenda items together.
Those are that was the primary update.
Okay.
Just that we put in our pre-application, we should hear we're accepted in, and people program opportunity notice will be in September, but the application hopefully due in October.
You know, busy. All right, well, good luck with that. And just since Brian's here, I was wondering if there was any update for the urban forestry grant that you had / tree committee.
Oh, yes,
stuff.
so we are moving forward. We had received, just as context, the city had received a $40,000 grant to help develop an urban tree committee to really make it aligned with our urban forest master plan that we completed a couple of years ago. We've actually begun some kickoff meetings. We're going to be looking to do some outreach to try and let people know that this opportunity is coming. We're starting to schedule focus groups with stakeholders within city government and other tree advocacy organizations within the city, and we will be providing more updates as we get them, but that has been kicked off, and we do anticipate the grant goes through the end of the fiscal year in June, and so we're hoping to be able to put all the pieces together so that we can actually get a tree committee. And I know the first person who will want to apply for it.
You've got an arborist
I
right
don't
here.
know, I'm gonna watch it, that's for sure, but, I mean, I don't understand why you just can't like do it right away.
Because,
All you really need to do is like,
well, I
Other-
have to
I mean-
explain to you about how municipal government works.
yeah, that'd be great. Because I've seen it work in other communities where it's like,
Right,
quick,
but with municipal
And,
government,
like,
particularly with
committee
municipal
members don't even get paid.
committees, municipal communities and municipal boards, it requires ordinance, it requires, different steps, different levels of vetting with different stakeholders within the city. And because the current code of regulations and ordinances in Lowell don't have a tree committee as part of them, because those duties are absorbed by other committees within the city, then we don't have something that would even formally allow that in its current form. So you do have to go through these steps, but I think by having a grant to do this and by doing the outreach that we're looking to do and by engaging people that are involved in trees on a daily basis within the city, we're working with Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust, we're working with UMass Lowell, of course, we're working with the municipality, we're working with Weston and Sampson, our great leader over here. I think it's something that we're going to get a better outcome by being thoughtful about it instead of just throwing something together.
yeah, I mean, throwing it together sounds ridiculous, I agree, but an idea of which is decent is having a body of people that are outside of government.
Right,
People
and that's why it would
just
be a
civilian people who
municipal,
are
that's why
willing
it
to
would be
show
a
up.
municipal board, just like the people on this municipal board are outside of the city government. And that would be the function of the tree committee, would be to be a board, and the specific kinds of things that you would be tasked with, that'll be developed over the course of engagement, over the course of working with focus groups and stakeholders within the city, working with the legal department to codify it all. And then, of course, when there would be openings, we would be happy to provide, let you know, and let the community know, because I think that there is a recognition of the importance of trees within the city of Lowell. And I do think that our urban forest master plan gives us a blueprint of how we can start to do that. And so I think that this tree committee is another piece of implementing that and making sure that we're creating the urban forest that's going to be resilient for the impacts of climate change into the future, not just doing things the way that we've always done them, and really trying to make this a very thoughtful.
So you're saying like the sustainability division would vet the people who are supposed to be on the tree committee?
Well, it's like all other municipal boards. You would go through the HR department, you would put in a resume and an application, same way that
Yeah,
the
but
members.
why would I have to apply for a committee through
Because
you?
because that's how city government works. And it's not through me,
But
it's gonna
I
be
wouldn't be
through
a
HR.
city, I wouldn't be a city employee of any kind.
Well,
You
there are
would be
some,
just lucky that I showed up, because there's only gonna be a few of us, I guarantee you.
well, that's why we're trying to get the word out. That's why we're doing public engagement. That's why we're trying to set up a website so people can learn more about how they can be a part of this. That's the purpose of it.
Yeah, so I think, we'll stay tuned, for, the tree committee selection, and, I'm glad the city's doing this. In the meantime, do you know how, because it's DPW that if a tree, if an old tree were to get cut down, are arborists usually consulted or?
Yes, so the city has a contract with professional arborists to assess whether trees should be cut down, whether they pose a danger to health of the people or the environment, and those kinds of things. That is managed through the DPW, not through the sustainability division. It goes through our tree warden, the commissioner of DPW, but all of that kind of thing. They don't just kind of take trees down willy-nilly. There's usually some type of danger that's involved when the trees have to come down, and that's something that's assessed by an independent certified arborist.
How independent can they be when they're getting paid by the DPW?
Well, I can tell you that consultants tell us things that we don't want to hear all the time.
When
So,
you're paying them, there's no
my
real conflict.
experience with working.
I know
with people-
exactly, I know.
So that's kind of that process.
That's where the tree committee outside of the payroll of the government comes in handy, because,
It's still gonna be under the purview of the city.
yeah, but at least there's someone there to like offer an opinion that might be outside of what we want here.
Well, I think, like I said, we definitely hear opinions we don't want to hear all the time. But that being said, though, it would be a municipal board, and because it's a municipal board, there are municipal processes, and I think I've talked a lot about the different municipal processes we have. But I certainly appreciate the interest, and we'll let you know more as we continue to develop this.
Awesome.
Mary had a
Oh,
question.
sorry, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, my question, Catherine, was on where are you guys getting the funds for the urban tree canopies? And I'm asking because I know from sources I cannot quote that urban tree canopies, those type of projects, especially in underserved areas, are quickly going to lack support for funding from even the most friendly people in government. So I'm just curious as to where our funding comes from.
Yeah, I am having a hard time hearing you, Mary, but the funding for the urban forestry, is that what you're asking about? Yeah,
Yes,
so
what
this
fund
is
is
from
it?
the Department of Conservation and Recreation, DCR. And so they provided us with this grant. It's part of the Urban Forest Challenge grant to try and, help create urban and community forests and do things that advance that. And so we had applied for that, I think 2 years ago. And so our contract was, our grant contract will go till the end of this fiscal year. But we always, anytime you have additional funding sources you think we should be looking at or tapping into, you know that I am always very happy to hear about those opportunities. And,
I'm actually painting. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
much
it's
better.
better.
Much better.
Yeah, what I was saying was that I have heard from reliable sources that funding for this type of projects is going to lack support very sooner than later. So so I was just asking, are these projects that we can, just something to think about later, about how do we then sustain this type of work in an environment where even the most friendly of climate leaders or even politicians are no longer willing to support some of these initiatives.
That's a great question, Mary. Thank you for posing it. We got the money for now, so we'll take care of it now. But you're right. I think we need to think of a longer term strategy to really build out this plan and things like that. So thank you.
draw down the funds as soon as possible. All right, that's great. So let's move on. It's just a time check, 7:16. Annual schedule of events and tabling. So there's 2 events coming up. If anybody wants to add the events that they know of that they think we might be interested in tabling, there is a Google Doc on the shared drive that's called Annual Schedule of Events or something like that. I'm trying to accept Wi-Fi, but so the 2 events that are coming up immediately, and we would either use the city's tabling materials to help advocate and do outreach on behalf of the city of our tabling, or have our own materials that were pre-approved by the city, of course. So it's Mill City Grows Harvest Fest, which is Sunday, September 13th from 1 to 4 at their farm. So we were asked if we wanted to participate. It seems like a great event. I'm willing to be there. We should have at least 2 people there. And then also the Lowell Drives Electric event, which we tabled at before. That's run by Scott Darlington, and that is over at Heritage Farm, like the ice cream stand. It's called something else now, but it was Heritage at one point. New owners. And that's always a really great event as well. So open that up for discussion.
Are we just saying if we're available or are we just deciding what which one? So I'm happy to jump on it.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do this.
I would be available for the 13th.
Awesome.
Fest.
We can't violate open meeting law, so 3 at a time at any, right?
Oh, that's right.
So don't all jump at once.
I'm not available for either, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll miss you.
But yeah, I was gonna ask, like, could we use like stuff Victor
Yeah,
Vargas
so I was
has?
gonna say, so what we have that we use for the city, that you're welcome to table it, whatever, but we have, flyers for the Community First Partnership, which is Mass Save. We have that available in the 3 major languages, as well as English. They're spoken in well, we have Spanish, Portuguese, Khmer. You need those. We also have flyers for the Home Modernization Navigator to help people, again, kind of understand what different technologies are there to help them decarbonize, what financial resources are available for them, and kind of more being a connector sort of thing for this. And so we're happy to provide this to the group, and if you have additional materials you would like to provide, just make sure that we have sufficient lead time to get them approved through the city chain.
Is that survey for charging station location still open?
I think it is.
Okay.
So that would be a good one.
That would be
for-
great to drive electric.
Yeah, that'd be good for drive electric.
Yeah, we could promote that.
Is the transit survey? I know that's LRTA. I don't know if that's us at all, but is that still open? There was a transit.
I don't deal much with the
Okay.
LRTA, so, but I'm happy to reach out and ask if they have anything like that.
And then last one I knew of, there was like a walk and bike survey at some point in the last like few months. If we're able to access that.
Like QR codes or something?
Yeah.
You just bug people to do surveys all day, that'd be great.
Do you know if he was going to walk and bike survey?
I remember seeing it, but don't.
Off the top of my head,
It's too much information all day long.
Yeah, that's
So, yeah.
That would also make, and I'll see, get a one pager for the EV charger. Is that what you got in the picture?
Yeah, yeah, there's lots of people that love electric cars at that event, so it's fun.
Well, it's called Wolf Drive Electric.
Yeah, yep,
And what time it starts?
27th, okay. You know what I'll do? So I've got, so that's great, 10th.
Yes.
27th. So I will create a Google sign up sheet
Sounds great.
for the Google Docs thing, annual tabling events, Lowell Sustainability Council. So all the details for both events are in the body of that document, and we'll do a little sign up sheet. And it's a fun time to take, it's a fun time to just like hang out with other LSC members, and the city people want to come too. Welcome to on your, wouldn't be on your time off. Do you really? Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, Anna Christina, go ahead.
Maybe I misunderstood for the 27th, that Heritage Ice Cream Electric. I mean, I just go to that. Are you saying only 3 of us can go to that?
3 of us can table at a time. If you happen to show up.
Oh.
there's one for you.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, good. All right.
Well, come
No,
table.
Hmm?
Come table at it with us.
Yeah. And also, I don't know, Ryan, you were asking about transit matters. I'm not sure if you've looked at the MPO, the plan for 2050 is to go all electric across the state.
Oh, you're
Is
talking
that
about
what
the
you're,
survey. I think there was a survey
Huh?
for transit. Ryan was mentioning the survey for the Lowell survey. But,
oh, I don't know the Lowell survey.
all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell both organizers that we're to count us in. So cool, and then we'll work, Catherine, with you all on the materials.
Carol, do you know the time for the Lowell Drive Electric?
Yep, it is 12 to 4 at Heritage Farm Ice Cream. You can bring your Tesla.
Yeah, I'd like to. That'd be fun.
Nice. Cool. All right. So any other events that we want to talk about? All right. Markley Data Center collaboration with Lowell Sustainability Division. How is that going, Catherine?
So I'll just give a little bit of background and kind of like what I work with Markley, what we know about what's going on and what's planned in the future. So I know that Markley had come in, I think it was last fall, before the planning board to try and get additional on-site emergency generation and diesel storage involved with that. I think that they had to have a couple of planning board meetings because there wasn't sufficient information available on different things like that. Then the spring they came to the city council to actually get a license. I didn't actually get pulled into a lot of these conversations. I had been asked to make some comments on their application last fall before the planning board. Basically, since it didn't provide a lot of information for the application itself or the history of what's been done, I said, it'd be good for them to work with Massive to make things more energy efficient, and the sustainability division would be happy to work with them to come up with additional kinds of sustainable solutions. When they came for their license in the spring, it actually got referred to a subcommittee. I attended that subcommittee, and my big thing was that it would be important to have conversations between Markley and the city to make sure that we're all going in the same direction. Now, I can say from what they had in their application to DEP, since it's just for emergency generation, it primarily just consists of testing each month. And there's also an estimation for, if it would need to be deployed, if the grid went down for whatever kinds of reason. I know that the overall emissions associated with that are less than 1% of Lowell's overall emissions. So it's not going to completely ruin all of our climate goals and going towards sustainable solutions.
Of the generators.
Of the generators,
Yeah.
right.
Ask,
Next, what's that?
can I ask?
Yeah.
Are you saying the new generators would be 1% of Lowell's total emissions, or the total compared, like combined with the
27.
previous, the 27?
Yeah, but all the generators together are less than 1% of Lowell's overall emissions. It's a good question, good clarifying question. And so the question is, I know that there are bigger concerns though, and we heard a lot of that at the subcommittee, at the city council, where they voted on the licensing on the planning board committee. Obviously, this is a large industrial site. I know there are concerns about diesel storage within an environmental justice neighborhood where you you have neighbors abutting up against it and things like that. I think one of the concerns as well that was expressed as a part of that is that Markley did not seem to be being necessarily the most transparent neighbor. They just kind of show up when they want to ask for things. You know, there were issues around their chillers and the noise associated with that, other kinds of problems and things like that. There was a walkthrough at Markley with some of the neighbors to give them an opportunity to see some of the things up close, even though one could argue the neighbors probably already knew what that was like. But, you know, I think the big thing that came out of the city council, that the city council did vote to allow them to store the diesel fuel. But I think what I heard from a lot of the councilors is you can't infinitely come back to these diesel storage on site. You need to work with our sustainability division. And so they wanted to work with the sustainability division. I had an initial conversation with them, and I felt a little better after that conversation, because I think they do recognize that they can't infinitely, you know, bring on diesel generators as they continue to grow up. They, when they initially set up Markley back around 2015, they worked with the Mass Save program. They've been working to make additional upgrades and efficiency on an ongoing basis at the plant. I had asked them, you know, have you considered solar storage in your facility? The answer that I received on that is that the roof has still got a lot of life left in it, but probably not enough life for solar. I understand that's kind of how we are on the city side as well. You know, I know that one of the things I said is I think that it's going to be important to have more transparency about how you're looking to scale the stack up generation, how you're looking to scale your operations, the timing of all that, and the alternatives that you're considering. And we talked about different alternatives that they've looked at for their particular application. And it's one of those things where, you know, there's no perfect solution a lot of times, but I think that they didn't say, they said that their generators are, let's say certified, but basically if you've had hydrotreated vegetable oil, that could be considered a drop-in replacement for the diesel that's on there. The problem with that is we don't really have the feedstocks for that within the New England area. I know a lot of the work around that is being done more towards Texas and towards California. I know the city council had also written a letter to the state delegation and our representatives in Congress to see what could be done to try and create these feedstocks around here. I know that they had considered fuel cell potentially, but for their potential application where you have the stationary emergency need for generation, they didn't think that the fuel cells had the capacity to take on what they would need to take on to keep their mission critical things together. That would also require on-site storage of LNG in order to do that. So, you know, it's also an impact there. But they have committed to meeting with me on a quarterly basis. And one of the things I've encouraged them to do is, you know, similar to what we try to do with the city, is first of all, what are you actually doing? How often are you going to be coming back to us? What does this timeline look? How can you get input from the neighbors, and how can we keep you accountable to make sure that you're doing the things that you said you were going to do? In particular, I'm thinking about the noise attenuation for their chillers. They said in the walkthrough that that's something that's being done. I believe the timeline was supposed to be the end of the summer, but I haven't heard anything specific on that. But that is something I will be asking in our next quarterly meeting. And I think I also encourage them to really be thinking about creating a plan to move away from all of this on-site diesel storage. How can you find other ways to provide the backup generation that you have? You know, would you look into some kind of piloting kind of project? Would you, over time, you know, if this metric were hit, then we can trigger this, or if this hits, then we can do that. We can do the drop-in fuels when this is available, or we're looking to replace this part of whatever piece of equipment at this time, and then we'll look at trying to upgrade things that, I mean, but just having that kind of plan, having that kind of transparency, because I think that well, not the biggest issue, but I think one of the things that really bothered me in listening to all the different testimony and things like that is that it didn't seem like they were transparent, and it seemed like their primary concern was to be in compliance with DEP, and I understand that. From a municipal standpoint, we have carrots that we can offer them support, we can encourage them to do things, we don't have as many sticks. The DEP is really the one that if they're not in compliance with the air quality in the neighborhood, they're the ones who can enforce that, things like that. So with all that said, I know that there are concerns about, I know there were some concerns expressed within the meeting and I think in your previous meeting as well about, are we basically going to subsidize the electrical upgrades that are needed to have this data center increase its capacity? Where is the end to it? How is AI impacting it? The answer in Massachusetts and in National Coast Territory is no. Any kind of electrical upgrades that are needed for extra capacity are borne by the project proponent. Even as we're looking into electrifying Jeanne d'Arc, that the costs of the upgrades on the grids are going to be borne by the city. There's a whole process, even starting with a step zero process within the utilities themselves to make sure that there's sufficient capacity so that it doesn't impact other people or that people within the environmental justice neighborhoods have to pay dramatically to upgrade their electrical capacity. So I hope that at least allays some fears in terms of how much energy they use relative to how much energy we use in Lowell overall and how that impacts our emissions. We don't have data on that. We will have data coming on that. For those that are not familiar, the Department of Energy Resources this year required any 20,000 square feet, is that our put together our portfolio. So any building over 20,000 square feet has to report on the energy use within their buildings and what they're using, and that data will be publicly available, anticipated around the end of the year. So Markley is one of the required reporters as part of that. So we'll actually know probably late fall, early winter, what their actual impact is on Lowell. That may be another kind of leveraging point. You're using this much energy in Lowell, and so what are you going to do to reduce that and reduce your impact on the neighbors, on our overall energy use, and how are you going to help us continue to move towards our emissions and energy reduction goals? So I think at this point, those are probably the only updates I can provide, but I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone has. That's a question.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna try and frame my understanding of like the situation with Markley in the city and like kind of see how that maps to. So my understanding is the city has this link project coming up, right? Where there are a lot of companies that are wanting to.
Lowell, but yeah.
Sorry, yes, thank you. UMass Lowell has the link project coming, and a lot of companies that want to come to be part of that project need their data to be stored at Markley. Is that right?
That's my understanding. I know at the last city council where they voted on it, UMass Lowell rose in support of the Markley project specifically because of Lincoln, specifically because of that need for data and cloud storage.
Yeah, I saw that. Mary Burns, chair of the UMass Building Authority, said that. And so like I get that there will be in some ways community benefits to that, like the economic development of that project. I guess one of the questions I'm kind of balancing, trying to understand this is, how do we promote economic growth and development for all, and how do we, not have economic development for some at the health expense of others, or the living quality of life of others. years, and thinking about like the history of highways being built through communities that have less political power, like low-income communities, communities of color, and how that disproportionately brings pollution in those areas, right? Or like the Cancer Alley in Louisiana with all the petrochemical plants and all that. So like, I guess I'm hoping, like, how do we allow for development of things that we're going to need? Like, we're going to need data centers. We're going to need to economically develop. But how do we allow that to happen in a way that doesn't, cause harm to the area directly surrounding? Is that a fair like frame?
I mean, I think that's, what is it, the $10 million
Yeah.
question, right? I think it is one of those things where, that's why we have environmental justice communities, designated environmental justice communities. And Lowell, as a post-industrial city, has a legacy of, there's contamination in different places across the city. And a lot of times that ended up in historically lower income, communities where people where English is not their first language, minority communities and things like that. So that's something we're very sensitive to, and the sustainability of the city in general. And so I think that's one of the things where having that kind of transition plan, having, more transparency in the neighborhood. One additional kind of thing that I had thrown out in our meeting is, can you have real-time sensors that you could share with the neighborhood? I don't know the answer to that. That's something that they would have to figure out and things like that. In the previous administration, that was something that was offered, but I don't know if the specific sensors that they were offering then would actually catch the types of impacts from diesel emissions and things like that. I know that it is ultra low sulfur diesel that they're working with in these generators, but again, I know that there will still inevitably be impacts. But I think the biggest component that they are missing is just the care for the neighbors and the transparency with the neighbors. And so those would be things that I would continue to try to push them on in our quarterly meetings, as well as, like I said, looking at how do we get there. Because I mean, on the city side, we have to figure out how do we get there as well. How do we get to net zero by 2050? What does our transition plan look like? And with all the different grants that we're getting, we have these comprehensive building assessments, which also include electrification feasibility studies. So again, you can have a blueprint for that for the 23 schools that are in our New American Schools, for the Vision Dark School. We're looking at all those kinds of things. And some of our smaller buildings, we've actually already transitioned from gas. So, I think it's one of the things that it's something that it's hard. I don't know the answer, but it's something that I'm going to try to keep pushing on. But
So let's come back to the neighborhood and solve the problems that we can. I hear that really, big question. The good news is that Massachusetts does not need to deal with the hyperscale data center problems because that's not a major problem for us. But that doesn't mean that we do not have problems, and that we do not have things that we need to do about the problems that we have. So, Catherine, I heard you say something about how costs are allocated between, like, when you have a big company coming into town and it has, it needs XYZ load growth or whatever, that there's, that it does a lot of the work. But this morning, I happened to be in a meeting where some of this data was shared and actually the cost is split with ratepayers. So I have something out here on National Grid territory where there's a need for like 39M in just building the distribution infrastructure because of a project moving into town, and ratepayers are paying $5.4 million of that, and the customer is paying, the rest. So I understand that sometimes the split may be, really towards the customer themselves. But I also know that in environmental justice communities, number one, we really need to know what's their demand. And I am hoping that there's a time when we can actually know how much energy does Markley use as a percentage of Lowell, not so that we can crucify them, but because that transparency is important for us, especially because our energy rates are really high and energy burdens in Lowell are like on the higher side. So that's one thing I'm hoping that the relationship between the city and Markley can produce for us in the future is a type of transparency. Because if we don't have that transparency on their energy usage, then we cannot even design metrics, because I believe that there should be metrics, or there should be a plan. There should be a plan from Markley on those diesel generators. There should be a plan that eventually means that there are no diesel generators there. And we can't get to a demand. We can't get to metrics. We can't go anywhere without solving that demand question. How much as a percentage of Lowell are you using? Like, for instance, right now, some of us are wondering, as part of National Grid's rate base increase last year, was there some in there because of Markley? We don't know, but that type of transparency is important. I wanted to raise that because I saw this for the first time today, like splits between ratepayers and those companies.
Well, then
And
I would talk to National.
don't ask me for the data because it's classified, not for public use.
Well, I was gonna say, can you actually send me that study? Because I know for what we're doing at Jeanne d'Arc, 100% of those costs are gonna end up on the city of Lowell. And I know that if you look at if you look at the process that the utilities have set up to add new loads to the thing, they say in that 100% of the cost is covered by the customer. So if we're not getting a good deal here, and if you can send me the backup for that, or somebody else that I could ask if it's classified, I think that's something that is very relevant, because that's not the way that it would work if we're the customer that's adding load. And so I didn't think, according to their public-facing documents of the utilities and the way that we've had to interact with them, I know that that's supposed to be 100% covered by the proponent of the project who's adding additional load. But I would learn more if you
if it was
going to be public.
Catherine, if it was, there would not be this huge push that's demanding that data centers like the one that's slated for development in Westfield not get the below market PPAs. If it was true that they were paying their share, when they come here, they negotiate. You saw the economic development bill in November had approved some type of sales tax exemption that includes electricity costs. So if that was not a big deal, they wouldn't be pushing for these things, and ratepayers would not be complaining that it's possible they are paying for the extra load. So.
Well, like I said, if there are any publicly facing documents, or if I should reach out to Westfield and see what's what, I just know that they're not cutting us any slack on our projects. so.
No, Markley can just tell you how much electricity they use and how much, I mean, what's their demand like. We'd like to know that.
Yeah, but I
That's
know,
a
I
good-
know that, I know on the demand piece, they are part of the large building energy reporting requirements. We should know that by the end of the year. And I think that's
Awesome.
not gonna be reported out by DOER, so stay tuned.
Michaela? Could I ask a question?
Yep.
I also would like to know the 1% or less than 1% of total emissions. I would also want to challenge that because you think of Lowell as, say, what, 26,000
So
households?
let me just clarify what that less than 1% is. The diesel generators that they have on site for emergency use only is less than 1% of the overall emissions.
Is that considering them operating 24/7 or what's the operational time?
That is based on the assumptions that are in their Mass DEP report. And so I think the the assumptions are for monthly tests and a catastrophic failure event is my understanding of the assumptions that are in the Mass DEP report.
So that, to me, sounds like a heck of a lot of emissions, right? Because
And I
1%.
can only go by what the data gives me.
Yeah, well, I'm just.
And the data says it's less than 1% of Lowell's overall emissions.
But when you think of Lowell as, say, 26,000 households, I don't know what Lowell's energy emissions might be, including transportation, which
Well,
is.
that's what I'm saying. I
another
mean,
thing.
it's made up of all of those kinds of things. You know, you have the electricity use, you have the gas use, you have estimations for delivery fees, you have transportation, you have construction emissions, you have all kinds of different categories. The biggest category in Lowell are buildings, and it's split about half and half between commercial, industrial kinds of buildings and residential buildings. And I can just tell you that by the emissions that were in the reports to DEP, now I can't vet those and say that those are right or wrong, but DEP does. And according to those numbers, that's less than 1% of Lowell's overall emissions.
But I guess my point, I'm not sure we're on the same page. My point is that 1% is a ton of emissions.
For just the emergency.
Well, it's actually 0.04%, but I just thought that less than 1% would be
So that's
better.
But that's a good metric for us to
0.04?
use. So we'll take bets on how much we think the overall emissions of the data center, because I'm gonna say 28% of the
Well, I
city's
mean,
energy.
the thing about it
is the
is we
data
don't
center.
know what we don't know, but
Yeah.
we will know more from the large building energy reporting.
That's exciting yeah. So they'll be reporting, and that's data.
They
and
are
we'll do-
required to report, and they are
we like
required to
data.
run actual
Yeah.
data.
What's your guess?
For not reporting? Because I think,
Oh, can they not report and pay
because I know
fine?
for BERDO, which is Boston, that's where LBER is the acronym for the statewide one, which is large building emission or energy reporting. I know for BERDO it's $1,000 a day, which is a lot. But I know for LBER, they did not want to throw that on there. I think year one, there's no fund. I mean, it's just for people to get acclimated. A lot of people haven't been doing this, but I don't think the fines are steep, but they're still significant. And I don't know where the fine goes, if it goes to the state or the city.
They haven't
I
told me.
do. Let's be careful about, the kind of data we're giving unless we're very sure about it. I was actually on the BADO Community Advisory Group. That data may not be accurate. Let's leave.
If we were to build a data center from scratch today, what's the most sustainable time and salary today? Because they're just, we're
Well,
only needing more, right?
Well, I mean, I guess it's probably a moot point in Lowell because we just are so built out already.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
reason that Markley located in Lowell is because there was already a big industrial site. It used to be the Prince Spaghetti Factory. So that actually turned out to be a good typology for them to create the data center. But
I was just curious if today would be like battery, I don't know.
I don't know.
They could be
I don't know.
very flexible.
From the information I found, that they're just so energy intensive, it's very difficult for them to attain equality when it comes to energy use. I mean,
when a GPU the size of this table takes up a megawatt of energy, that's 5 acres of solar. So when you think about a 20 megawatt facility, that adds up quick, you know. So solar might not be the best option. It's probably RECs, credits. That's how they're probably getting to where they need to be, but it's very difficult. And, you know, I think that's where you can see additions in advancements in technologies with fuel cells, with small modular reactors, with applications like that.
All right, I've got Ryan and then Mary, and it just time check, we're at 7:52. So,
I was just gonna ask, what leverage the city has to try to affect change, in terms of where they're getting their energy. Like, I mean, I'm curious. I mean, the city, as I understand it, could have said, no, you can't build more.
They could have, so the city doesn't really have a lot in terms of being able to say you absolutely cannot do this. If they're in compliance with the DEP, if they're in compliance with their other obligations, the city had to vote to give them a license to store the diesel fuel. They could have said no to that, but as our solicitor said, that if we did say no to that, it's not really something that we're saying no to because they're not in compliance with what our licensing agreement is. I believe his words were, then my workload would get a little heavier. So it ends up in litigation if you're in that kind of thing. But I think, you know, from what I heard from the city council last time, that they mostly voted, with the exception, I think, of Councilor Scott, to allow for the licensing. The message that I heard was, you need to work with our sustainability division. We need to do better. We need to show progress the next time you come back. So I don't know if other people heard of it. That's what
all right, Mary, you have your hand up.
Yeah, from what Catherine has shared, it appears to me that one of the long-lasting lessons that the city can draw from the Markley situation is, one, harmonizing economic development and the sustainability division, like having a relationship when projects are coming into town between these two, between economic development and the sustainability division, because that will mean that we're actually really balanced out in terms of the gains that we need for the economy, as well as environmental and equity goals. And then the other thing, it seems to me that there is an opportunity here for the city to continue with its diplomacy with our lovely Catherine and the rest of the sustainability division, to continue with the relationship with Markley with the goal of reducing the need for diesel generators, diesel backup generators at the site, as well as managing load. That was my conclusion from hearing what you said.
Yeah, and I'd add, there are definitely, you know, the environmental concerns, the emission concerns for the surrounding neighbors. I would love to see air quality monitors, noise monitors put around and really holding them accountable, because if they do come back and ask for more fuel storage, you know, there could be litigation, but the city does have the ability to delay the project, which would mean, you know, not great things for Markley, but that's just working together to try to make sure that the quality of life for the neighbors are not, is not adversely affected even more than it has. Water use, I'm curious about. I pulled some water use data from, you know, public records. Doesn't show that they use a ton of municipal water, which is usually common for data centers. So I'm curious where their water comes from. So it'd be nice to get that information.
Citizen that lives in that area file, I mean, an environmental tort claim for nuisance on noise.
I'm afraid that that is above my pay grade.
Okay.
No, I'm
I'm
just-
an engineer by trade, not a lawyer.
No, I'm curious of like, if this really did step up, I fear I don't want the city to be liable or anything with that regard.
That's true.
That if I was a citizen in that area, not to say like, it might sound so American, but to sue. To file a nuisance of, prolonged noise exposure, even just noise, I think that's something.
Well, I
they can
think that they
work on.
can report noise violations and problems like that to the development services.
Okay,
And I know that I believe that was what they said in the subcommittee, if there were problems around that. But you need to tell me things, not my
Yeah,
No, fine,
that's totally
just
fair.
curious.
That's totally fair. Anyone have anything else to add before we move on? I just want to thank Catherine for that report.
Yes, one more thing.
Yeah.
There's something Lowell politicians can do the next time Markley comes with a diesel generator thing. They should not hide behind DEP. If a city can say no to its own housing development plan, then it can definitely say no to a private company that's making money in this city and doesn't care about the health of Lowell residents or their well-being. And I just wanted to voice that out. I don't think that DEP's sovereignty does not mean that the city of Lowell cannot say no. We should be able to protest if something is not working for us. We should say no to it, regardless of what DEP thinks.
Amen.
Yeah.
And they get a $77 million tax break for the city for 20 years. So I think,
10 more years.
they can put solar on the roof. It's only 10 years old. Okay, so it is 7:58, you guys. We tried to keep this agenda light, but we didn't. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Catherine. So one last thing we had to talk about was the criteria for initiatives. So what we'll do is try to prepare something for the next meeting and talk about that. We have some upcoming potential meeting topics, including litter and how we can work with hopefully inviting maybe, was it Chris Sullivan?
Would you like me to invite him to your September meeting or see if he's available?
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. And then there was also the YCCA, Youth and Climate Change.
Action.
Action.
And there's,
Action.
as part of that, the look at the curriculum piece
The
that
schools.
was in the
Yeah.
city, in the school committee motion.
Yep. So those are some agenda topics. I don't know if there's someone that we might want to invite about the education piece, but we can work on that.
I'd be happy to talk to you offline.
Okay, awesome. So we'll see if Chris Sullivan's available to talk about the litter topic, and then I know you had some topics that you wanted to.
Yes. The make polluters pay legislation or the Superfund legislation.
Okay. We can talk about that sooner if you want to. I would just say, here's my idea. We're gonna put together a packet with materials before each meeting. So if you have an agenda topic you really want to talk about, and there's like a accompanying material or like quick memo you want to write up that you want us to consider, if it's a voting item especially, we can work together during the, is that okay, Catherine, if we like work together to put materials together for the meeting?
I think if it's like an individual putting together the
Yeah.
materials.
Oh, but not
maybe
like
that's
3 of us.
okay. Probably, you're probably better off not like doing group work together and
Okay.
stuff like that.
We won't talk about it at the tables at the events or anything. So, okay, so we'll, and I'll try to kind of compile a packet that we can review for the meetings, so people can have an opportunity to like put stuff together. Oh, Mary, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a suggestion, and maybe we can develop the idea later. But I think it's important for the link project, for the Lowell Sustainability Council to know what this link project is, what it means for sustainability, and so that we don't behave like we're behaving now when Markley is already many years, being a nuisance in the community. So I think that I don't know how to word it, but I think that's something that's worth learning about or just hearing about or something like that.
And I was gonna say, I'd be happy to reach out to UMass Lowell and see if we can get somebody here to speak about it in the future.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great, so we'll add that, yeah, we'll add that to like the list of people like that we can invite for the upcoming monthly meetings, and depending on their availability, that will be the focus of our next meeting. Thanks for raising that, Mary. Same with Front Runner City too. I feel like that's, sustainability is at like the forefront of that.
There's a lot to learn about.
Anna Christina, real quick, what's up?
No, just really quick, I don't know, maybe I should ask Catherine separately. She knows I harp on this all the time. But if there's any way we can find out the developers for Link, what percentage are Envision certified, that might help, and it would offset some of the questions that Ryan brought up as far as quality of life, operations they should be hiring locally. Like what, I want to know who's coming in for the Link. So I don't know how you can work that into the agenda some way.
Well, here's what I'll do. I will issue invitations. I'll start with Chris Sullivan for solid waste and recycling for the September meeting. I think that can be a pretty extensive conversation. I think the link conversation can be a pretty extensive conversation. So if Chris is not available for September, I'll invite Craig Thomas of UMass Lowell. Otherwise, I'll reach out to Craig to see if he could look more into the October meeting as something for that. But
I know it's 8:03, but I think the Nick Polluter Space Super Fund bill would also take some pretty significant conversation. So maybe we schedule that for like the one after those two.
Yeah, we can. And if you have materials you want to send out ahead of time, we can all read them beforehand too. That will help us be more prepared for the discussion, I think. All right. It is motion to adjourn, anybody? All right. I think we all kind of did that. All right. Yes. All right, everybody. Thank you.
I can bring I don't want to have to overload your via time.